I'd like to welcome you all to the 2022 Hutto Community Watch Forum. Very similar to what we did last year, except there, nobody was face to face. Just we were handling it over what they call
Zoom.
Doing it over Zoom. We did 5 of them. This time we're only going to do 1 face to face, and it will be broadcast. Maybe not live, but it will be broadcast on 2022. We're trying to get it on there right now. But got it. He is recording everything going on in there, so we'll have that where we can dump it on 2022. Show it later if it doesn't get fixed here just a minute. I'd like to go ahead and turn around and introduce you all to the group out here, and I'll start off with Randall. Come in and say, it's your turn to start. 3-minute opening. Pass it down. 3 minutes.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for showing up today for this forum. I know my fellow candidates and I appreciate everyone showing an interest in our town, and specifically our local election, and asking the people to represent you on our city council. I want to thank Hutto Community Watch for putting this on, and for Christ the Rock Church for hosting this event. Now a little bit about me. My name is Ronald Clark, and I am running for Hutto City Council Place 3. I grew up in Central Texas. I graduated from high school in Killeen, and then I went and got my degree in electrical engineering with a mathematics minor from Texas A&M University, where I have worked in the semiconductor industry upon graduation over the last 20 years, developing test development methodologies all over the world, and following an 8D process to make sure quality is always at the forefront of the products I work on. After that, I moved to Hutto in 2006 prior to opening of the toll road, so I've been here a long time. And I've seen the rapid changes that have occurred over Hutto in that time. While still working and raising a family, I went back and got an MBA, graduating in 2017 with an emphasis in project management and finance. Once I completed that degree, I decided that I wanted to figure out how I could help Hutto, so I reached out and asked where I could serve. I was appointed to the Zoning Board of Adjustment in March of 2018, where I have served since then. But it meets infrequently, typically about 3 to 4 times a year. So I reached out again to see where I could serve on a more frequent basis. And there was an opening on planning and zoning. So I joined that in January of 2019. Over that time, I have served in both of those committees and was voted chairman of Zoning Board of Adjustment, and recently also the vice chair of planning and zoning. In July of 2021, I was appointed to the Economic Hutto Development Corporation as well. In these roles, I've helped approve and send to council the capital improvement plans, the water and traffic impact fees, adoption schedules, planning and zoning plans that conform to the UDC code. I want to help in the future Hutto to get into a vision that will handle the growth curve we are on, and to make sure that we have good road mobility, stable taxation, and more diverse retail choices, so we can truly live, work, and play here in Hutto. Thank you for your time, and look forward to this forum. Ida.
That's excellent. You keeping the time there,
Yes.
Ed? Okay. I'm Ida Weaver. I'm running for Place 3 City Council as well. I moved to Hutto in 2014, and I love Hutto's strong railroad and agricultural heritage. I got involved in city government not till 2019, when the city raised property taxes by 28%. I volunteered for the Hutto Senior Watch, the organization that was instrumental in getting city property taxes capped for 65 and over and disabled homesteaders. That's a permanent thing, it can't be repealed. Later in 2020, I served on the Hutto Charter Review Commission. The city charter is Hutto's governing document. I was founding board member of the Hutto Community Watch, and I regularly attend city council meetings. As much as I love my city, I cannot sit back and just watch as I see on council back-channeling, interference with staff, special interest manipulation, and political maneuvering. I thought my opposition would be Mandy Villarreal Salvo, but then she revealed her plan to run for mayor, which explains a lot. This is an endorsement from Cheryl Stewart. I started watching council meetings before moving here in September 2020. Ida Gale Weaver has the heart, determination, and willingness to help ensure that we're being financially responsible and accountable. Thank you, Cheryl. I have a cum laude engineering degree with over 20 years of leadership and team building experience in scientific research, engineering, nonprofit advocacy boards, and 7 years in a homeless ministry. As a critical thinker, I have strong decision-making skills. I was lead materials engineer for numerous, this is in the 80s, for numerous complex DoD weapon systems, cradle to grave. That include helicopters, fighters, missiles, so on. With the IRS, I was lead on research tax credit audits, and I appraised both residential and income properties. I have lived and worked in 5 states with highly diverse Democratic populations. Texas has been my home since 1988. After retiring in '97, I continued to be actively involved in community service, including nonprofit development, years of fundraising activities for institutions such as St. Jude and the Shriners. And as a board member of the Montague County Economic Development Corporation for 2 years. Training, experience, skills, and heart. I will bring positive community leadership and teamwork to the Hutto City Council. If you want conservative budgeting, stable taxes, and self-sustaining growth, vote Ida for place 3.
So for those who I have not met, I see some new faces. My name is Mike Snyder. I've had the pleasure of serving as mayor of Hutto for the past year, from an election last year. My family moved to Hutto in 2017. I had no inclination to get into politics. Quickly reading the Community Impact and other newspaper articles, Hutto was frequently in the paper for nothing really of good nature. In 2019, I ran for city council. I had one main point. I thought that City Hall was corrupt and the city council at the time was asleep at the wheel. And so I was elected then, and then 2019 was kind of a mess. That's where a lot of things started to, I would call it the house of cards, fell apart. We spent most of 2020 and 2021 piecing back the city. Shortly after being elected, those of us who were new to council, we encountered laying off a third of our workforce for the city. One of the worst experiences I've ever experienced in my life. When you vote for me again for a re-election, what you're going to get is experience. I understand how the government works. You'll hear things like we're a legislative body. In fact, the city council, everything that you see and do in the city of Hutto goes through the city of council. Every dollar spent, every decision made, everything goes through. The city council is there to set the path and then also to fund and allocate money to see that through. If employees aren't getting the job done, we manage one employee, the city manager. So if you see staff changes sometimes happen primarily in my mind because things weren't getting done. The experience I also bring in terms of Hutto government is also development. My day job, I've been at the same employer for 28 years. My day job is in development. I understand what it takes to develop, from utilities, zoning, all the different things that go into it. My wife and I also own a couple small businesses. These aren't home-based, not knocking the home-based businesses, but these are ones that we have payroll, we have rent, property taxes directly affect everything from the prices we charge to the wages we're able to pay to our employees. You'll hear also people talk about how difficult it is to write budgets in Hutto. We can go line by line. Round Rock School District is a prime example of a district that has set a no new revenue rate. I think the big thing that the community of Hutto needs to understand is you can't have all the wants. We have to start with the needs and then add in the wants until we can't afford them anymore. And that's one of the things I've brought to the Hutto City Council. The last two big things are accountability and transparency. If you don't have those, it doesn't matter who you elect. If you can't keep them accountable and they're not willing to have the discussions in public, it will do you no good who you put in office. So I look forward to hearing your all's questions. I appreciate you all being here today and the people online. Thanks.
everybody. I'm Mandy Villarreal Salvo. I'm currently sitting on place 3 for the City Council here in Hutto. I moved here to Hutto after being in Central Texas for 12 years and growing up in South Texas. I have 3 degrees in anthropology, rhetoric and writing, and corporate communication, and I'm certified in advanced conflict resolution, mediation, and facilitation. I've had some wonderful jobs throughout my adult career, from working at the Capitol to working at the School of Law at UT, working at the MBA program office, the Arthritis Foundation, Texas State Technical College, and opening my own business back in 2016 for marketing. And with all of these jobs came a lot of experience and a lot of management experience, budgets as well. And when we moved here after getting married, it was in 2019, right at the end of the city manager at that time's tenure. And we were really excited to move to Hutto. It was an exciting time. We were here for the co-op, we were here for Perfect Game, and we were very excited to move to Emery Farms, backing up into this beautiful cornfield, and then within a few months, there was an industrial complex. And so note for first-time homeowners, we were like, let's aflum, and we started going to City Council to find out the future land use maps, and then started hearing a lot more about what had been going on. So we were talking to residents, we were talking to the council members at the time to just get a background on the history. At that time, I got on the HOA for the neighborhood and started advocating, going to council meetings on behalf of the neighborhood with the Titan Development group that was building the innovation park behind our house. And I had been briefed on the multiple years of back and forth and lack of contractually made obligations that they had promised the community. And that was why I was going to council regularly. Whenever the seats came available, there were people in the community that asked me to run for council, which was not something I'd ever planned to do, had no inclination to run for office. But I've always done volunteer work and saw that, you know, as a servant leader, you do what you are asked to do. So I ran, and that's exactly what happened over the holidays this past year. People saw issues that were happening still in the community or were disappointed with the leadership. And so I thought about it and stepped up and decided to run for this role. What we've been lacking in Hutto for multiple years is vision, strategy, and a willingness to partner with all of the other entities that allow us to move forward in a healthy way while keeping our taxes moderated. And we haven't been able to do that. We've been fighting with everybody, and that's not my goal. My goal is to be at the table and make sure that Hutto isn't run over.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank Hutto Community Watch for organizing, Christ the Rock for hosting, and for all y'all showing up. Forums are a great opportunity to get informed before voting, and as we've seen in Hutto, it's very important to know who you're electing. My name is Nicole Calderon. I'm running for City Council Place 6. I've lived in Hutto since 2006. My husband and I moved here to raise our family. We've been together 20 years, and we have 3 daughters, 13, 8, and 11. And some of the things that I've done in the community, I volunteered as a children's ministry teacher. I started a homeschool program at the library. I have been on our neighborhood Yard of the Month committee, serving as chairperson. I've served as president and vice president of our HOA. And I've also coached youth soccer. And my professional experience, I have over 20 years in full service hospitality, restaurant management. I also have 10 years of customer service, and currently working downtown at the Four Seasons as a food and beverage coordinator, processing orders for in-room dining and riders for amenities. I'll be taking on a new position as front of the house manager at a local farm-to-table restaurant here soon. I was contacted by a previous employer to come back with a promotion and a raise. I was also, as a homeschool mom, contacted by a school to help launch the program, a program of student-led learners who are self-governed and set up their own accountability. So through the children, I learned a lot about the foundations of our American government system and how we're designed, and compared to what Hutto's been going through, got my attention in 2018. We had members leaving council to take paid jobs. We had deals hidden in the back. We had a history of bullying and intimidation, and I spoke out against that. And I was very angry, as I thought most people should be, and unfortunately turned a lot of people off with my attitude, and my message was lost. But over the years, we've seen more information come out that validates my concerns and more people becoming aware. And I have run against the mayor in 2019. I ran against Peter Gordon in 2020 and Crystal Kenzie in 2021. And I'm running to fill a role and to do the job for the citizens of Hutto. My number one responsibility is to represent the people, to provide city services, and to do it in a way that takes financial responsibility for tax dollars. I hope I can count on your vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank y'all very much for coming to this forum. I look forward to the questions that y'all have put in the basket. But my name is Amberly Kolar. I'm running for City Council Place 6 as well. I am a native Texan. I'm from South Texas. I have lived in Georgia and Florida as well. I moved to Hutto in 2018, so I've been here for 4 years. And I moved from North Austin out this way. My husband and I, we bought our first home here in Hutto. And we also have started our family. We have 2 little ones, so we have started our family here in Hutto too. And just a little bit about me. I do have a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. I also got my master's degree in global security studies from Angelo State University here in Texas. And if elected, my priorities are to maintain fiscal responsibility, to invest in infrastructure, and to keep property taxes low. Those are my priorities if elected. I chose to step up to the plate to run for Place 6 because I want to serve my community. I've seen the growth that's happened in the 4 years that I've been here. I've seen the growth happen, and I wanted to get involved. And so I chose to step up to the plate, and I want to serve my community. I see a positive future for Hutto, and I'm looking forward to serving, and I'm willing to get out there. I'm getting out there to meet the residents and to work hard to earn your vote. So I look forward to the questions. And in addition, with my experience, I do have a policymaking experience at the federal and state level with policymaking. So I feel that my experience at those levels would serve Hutto well at the local level. Thank you.
Before we start, I'm gonna now, I vibrated my phone because I don't want any incoming phone calls, so it made the beep beep sound vibrate as well. So I'm gonna set it to where it makes a sound. Before we start the question. Just take me a second.
Right. Okay. These questions will give you 2 minutes each. Randall, we'll start with you. What platform are you running on to improve Hutto?
So the platform I'm running on to make Hutto better is the idea of fixing our overall tax burden. And the way we do that is by approaching and getting large economic development into the city of Hutto. You've heard about some projects that are coming that have been mentioned in the public space here recently. So we need to get those in, get them closed, create reinvestment zones so we can then use that funding to build our roads and infrastructure. As I've gone through the city, the number one complaint I hear is two things: taxes and roads traffic. So we use that new development to pay for the road improvements so we can increase our mobility quickly through the town without overburdening the current residents that live here. In addition, by holding the line of what tax incentives we get to get that economic growth, we can overall time lower the overall tax burden to each individual citizen. So I'm in favor of keeping our taxes where they need to be and getting the projects done that we have by keeping fiscal responsibility. In addition, I have seen where even where we've approved projects, we have not kept them on task. So by using modern project management stuff such as Gantt charts and waterfall effects to look at when the city planning team brings their schedules, that we hold them accountable to the schedules that they are. And one of the ways we can do that is by who we hire for our next city manager. We currently have an interim one, and every time we have a changeover in city management, that causes a delay on all projects because that new person has to come in and get up to speed, and they're going to do it a different way, so then you'll have staff turnover. So the consistency of leadership needs to come from the top down. That comes from the council, us getting a good city manager that is professional and can do the job, and then that will allow us to move forward.
Okay. Repeat the question, please.
What platform are you running on
Oh, okay.
to improve Hutto?
I'm looking for a positive city council that can work together. Because I don't care whether he has his programs, I have my programs, he has his programs. That's good. But if we can't work together and come up with something we can all agree on, or at least four of us, it doesn't do any good. We're all just sitting there spinning our wheels. And I haven't seen that in city council lately. I'm also wanting the taxes not to go up, to go down as possible. I want development that pays for itself. And development, as in industry and commerce, is coming in. But roofs add infrastructure costs. They don't pay for infrastructure cost. What I suggest that we concentrate on is freeing up the infrastructure bonds, $100 million of infrastructure bonds that are sitting there already. And that's good because the projects are already in the budget. Once we get the bonds freed up, we can start scheduling out contracts so that we don't run up the taxes at the same time. I think that's good, right there.
Okay.
All right, so for me, it's to continue what we've been doing. It's one, to have development pay for itself. One of the things we've done over the past year is for the homes that we say aren't paying for things, keep in mind, each home that comes in adds $10,000 to water and wastewater impact fees. They also have $4,000 that are added for our traffic impact fees. We've already seen the result of that just alone, and that our water rates were reduced by over 30% for the vast majority of homeowners, unless you're an excessive water user. We're able to do that because the new development is paying for itself. As long as we continue on that plan, we're going to have a well-balanced economy. We need to keep pushing for that, but the city does not dictate what gets built where when it comes to, I want a grocery store to open up here, and I want this retailer to open up here. We can have a commercial corridor, we can have areas that are going to be residential, and the market forces dictate a lot of that. And so what we can do is make sure if we don't want as many homes, what we've been doing is we charge more for every home that comes in. And then also, we're not zoning more land for homes. What you're seeing on these developments are areas in the ETJ that we're then asking them and working out ways to bring them into the city so that we just don't get their impacts, we also get the benefits of the tax base. The other thing is taxes. If we have to keep going line by line, it was an excruciating experience this past year. We didn't give our CFO but maybe a month to throw a budget together. That's not enough time. She had just got hired. But if we have to go line by line every single time on a budget, when I see an item like in the parks budget that says $50,000 for small tools and equipment and no one can explain what that $50,000 is for, I will always vote to take that item out. And like we said in this past budget, when the staff can tell us what they need, we're more than happy to have the conversation in public. And then once it's in public, vote on whether or not we need to have that. If you do that, you can help, you'll be able to keep your taxes low. There's no reason you can't run on no new revenue.
So, platform to improve Hutto, I mean, there's definitely a lot of areas that we need improvement. And the first area is our roads, our water, our wastewater, maximizing those assets that we already have, revitalizing, improving our parks, continue to expand our public services like the library, and then creating master plans for all areas of governance. You can operate on a no new revenue rate if you have been creating a balanced tax base for multiple years already, and you're in a maintenance stage, like Round Rock and like Georgetown and like Taylor. Hutto has not had any focus on that, and so right now our tax base is completely made up on the backs of our residents. So when you bring a house in a rooftop, that means extension of services on the municipal level for every person living in that home. So the house would have to be minimum $800,000, $900,000 to even equate what those services are with police, with water, with wastewater capacity, with road infrastructure. So yeah, maybe we're getting $10,000 per household, but if we're not getting hundreds of thousands of dollars per resident, then we're never gonna meet the equilibrium that we have to hit in order to provide services effectively as a municipal government. Returning civility and decorum to the dais is another big issue that has to be addressed. The job of the mayor is to preside over the meetings at city council. And multiple years now, Hutto has allowed backtalk, rude comments to volunteers, dressing down of our staff like our police chief, and much more beyond that with developers, with business owners, and that's not our job. Who would want to compartner with our city and bring economic development to us, or volunteer on our boards and commissions if we can't be respectful? We need to be a respected partner to all of the other entities in the community, and we need to keep reducing that residential tax burden and distributing it equally across.
My platform for improving a better Hutto is to really articulate the shared vision of the council. A lot of times we've seen candidates that are pushed by others to run, and they get elected through the pack, and then when they get on the dais, then they are unclear of which direction to take, which causes division. So I spend a lot of time really elaborating my platform and the ideas that I see that are problems, the vision that I see eventually, and the steps to get us there. So first and foremost, I have demonstrated my platform of high standards and flushing out the lies and exposing what's been swept under the rug. Corruption has been a problem here, and that word is hard, it hurts. I thought I'd be happier now that we are getting to the bottom of it, but taking the Band-Aid off and cleaning the infection is a painful process, but without it, we can't heal, and once we do and have scar tissue, we'll be stronger than ever. So my priority is to uphold the duties of office and to take that seriously by representing the people, to lead with an unwavering integrity and maintain those standards, to establish a reputation of Hutto. We don't tolerate malfeasance. Another priority is the explosive growth and managing that, and the adverse impacts that come with that, not just physically in our infrastructure, but also as a society. And I think it's important for our government to connect the people with the social organizations to give them the assistance they need, if it's training, education, ride share, child care services. So I really think that it's important that council works together with those programs to bring those things to Hutto that we don't have. And 2 minutes is a short time, so thank you.
All right, so my platform to improve Hutto, I kind of went over them in my opening remarks, but of course fiscal responsibility is a big issue that I want to improve. We've got to make sure the budget is balanced and that we grow our reserves, that the money that's collected are going to be dollars that are invested in providing services for the city, for the residents. for public safety, parks, etc., what local government does, and do it responsibly. Another way that I would improve Hutto is obviously to invest in our infrastructure. Our roads definitely need to be addressed. Working with county officials in getting funds for our roads, because Hutto, of course, is growing, and there's a lot of people on the road. The roads are, getting damaged, and so we definitely need to invest in our infrastructure. Same thing with the water and wastewater system. It's just, being taxed with the growth that's coming, and so we just need to invest in our infrastructure. And then also just keeping property taxes low by diversifying the tax base. We do need to welcome retail, commercial, industrial businesses. Of course, the residential is there. So when we diversify the tax base, it will improve Hutto and take some of the burden off of the residential taxpayers, so that it can be shared with corporations, retail, industrial, commercial partners.
Okay. Question 2, we'll go to Ida first.
Okay.
If you could go back over the past 3 years and change one City of Hutto council decision, what would it be and why?
That's easy. The council decision that I would change from 2019, which would be 3 years ago, was to not release our city manager without cause and not pay our city manager $400,000 to leave.
So my-
and why? I guess I should say why.
Oh, yeah.
You said why. Okay. Because he was a crook.
Okay, so my decision, it wouldn't have been a decision I would have changed. It hopefully would have been a decision the council would have changed. The date was July 3rd, 2019. I remember it because it was right before 4th of July. We came out, I made a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate any and all agreements with Perfect Game. And the mayor said, "Did you mean to not say execute?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I did. He just got done telling us before we see any agreements, or before he signs any, we'll see them." And so there was a big hubbub. As my opponent says, it wasn't the most decorum area because they didn't like that I was trying to do that. And the city council voted to give any and all authority to delegate our entire responsibility away. We've had nothing but lawsuits since. It was a multi-million-dollar disaster. I'm tired of litigation. Most of my vacation days are a result that I use in my day job are a result of going to depositions for the legal mess that we've been in. So I get no joy in being a part of these legal issues. The only joy I do get is that I know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that as long as we do things in the front with the public, make sure that we're very transparent in all of our decision making, we won't make decisions like that again. And while that's an expensive process, it's one that I hope that not only our city council, but city councils all over the metro area realize that if you give your power away, which in our charter, all the power resides in the city council, when you give that away to staff or you give that away to the city manager without any oversight, bad things happen. So that's why. Thank you.
So it's pretty simple. Looking back at the past 3 years, I feel like we've done everything backwards when it's gone to litigation. The first people that should have been sued and sued through the teeth should have been our city attorneys. They were the ones that created malpractice. They did not advise our city council at all the correct way. And as a council, you don't go to school to be taught everything. You rely on trainings, and you rely on your attorneys to make sure that to advise you when it comes to what your legal rights are as a city council and as a legislative body. The fact that we just engaged our litigation attorney a few months ago to finally go against McGinnis Lockridge, and the pressure was there to get it done because we were about to lose out on the the window, the time frame to actually sue them, just seems so backwards to me, since they were the first point of malpractice. Everything else is good, and you do need to hold people accountable for malfeasance, but the biggest issue was definitely with the malpractice of our attorneys, and everything else stemmed from that. They should have advised counsel, you can't delegate your legislative authority. They should have advised counsel, you can't sign that, or you can't okay that, or that's not a great use of your bonding capacity. That's why you have city attorneys. They're there for parliamentary procedure. They're there for advise and consent. They're there to guide you along the path, hopefully making good decisions as a municipal attorney. And they didn't do that, and so here we are. We've had one litigation suit after another, and we're still picking up the pieces, and I still don't fully trust our city attorneys because of the decision makers that hired them. So I look forward to a better municipal attorney for the city of Hutto going forward.
If the question were what decision would you change in the last 6 years, then my answer would be different. I would have exposed the Osborne report and prevented a series of huge problems. But in my answer to this question, in the last 3 years, something that I would change council being liaisons to the boards and commissions. This was brought on when we had incompetent staff that wasn't trained and information wasn't being communicated between the boards and commissions and council. And council inserted themselves as the point of contact to improve the bridge in communication. We know that we've seen a change in turnover in employment, and we are filling these roles with educated and competent staff, and council serves no place on these boards and commissions. We need to empower our staff, we need to empower our people by backing up and going hands-free. My suggestion is that the staff liaison, and every board and commission has a staff liaison, is the person that communicates to council the progress of the board. If not the staff liaison, then the chairman of the board, or perhaps they take a rotation. But the boards and commissions are for the people. Council's job is not in that lane. I think that by removing council from the boards and commissions will give the opportunity of the volunteers and staff an opportunity to shine. That is all.
So the decision that over the past 3 years that I would change is just the reputation that Hutto has gotten based off of the past history with the former city manager and the city attorneys. Hutto has just it's been involved with litigation. It's in the news, getting its reputation just put on the line because of the actions of the past, and so it's time to move forward. And my vision is that unfortunately, what happened in the past did happen, and Hutto's reputation has had a negative light. But now is the time to move forward and to change that vision in a positive light. And I'm a forward-looking candidate. My vision for Hutto is positive. I see, I want to work for the future of Hutto because the past is in the past, and I'm ready to move forward. I think Hutto's ready to move forward as well. And I'm looking forward to the city getting a new permanent city manager and moving the city forward for the residents as well.
Thank you.
Are you ready? Okay. Thank you. My biggest thing, there's been lots of issues that have happened in the past, but the thing I keep coming back to is the voters overwhelmingly passed voting bonds for infrastructure improvements many years ago. Where would we be today as a city if we had actually built our roads before the more growth has happened? So now we're in a position where the traffic is still horrible, and we're gonna have to do the construction at this rate of traffic when we could have done it in the past when it would have been a lessened impact. And when COVID, when everybody was not driving as much in the roads, and now people are starting to return to work, we're gonna tear up large sections of our city. And I wish we had done it sooner. And now it's going to have at a higher interest rate because of inflation. And we're going to have the cost of materials and everything is now expanded in everything in society. So not doing the job has cost millions of dollars more than what it would have done if we had done it when the voters told us to do it. So the council's fault on that, and there's a myriad of reasons. The other thing is that we had also voted for places for the people in this town to have places to play. We were going to have some very amazing park systems added as part of the bonding funds. Those funds were misappropriated, going back to other stuff. That's from council and city manager's staff that's now cleared and gone. But to move forward, we were supposed to have an amazing playground at the Brushy Creek Amphitheater. It was one of our capital improvement plans that I passed from P&Z. It went to council, was killed. These are one of the reasons why I want to get on council, because we need to have better quality of life from your city government to help the people that live here. We're paying high taxes. We need to try to cut that, but we need to get something for what we're paying today. I don't feel like I'm getting what I'm paying for. So, thank you.
My apologies, Randall. Mike, how will you help ensure residents of Hutto are not taxed out of their homes?
That's yours.
All right, for me, this has been, I guess you could say, a passion of mine since I've got on council. It started with the senior group. One of the first things I heard was we need our taxes under control, and we ended up putting a ceiling on that. We don't have an income problem. You hear about this diversity of our economy. We need that, but that's not the solution, okay? The tax burden is so high. I gave an example at a joint meeting last year. If you're a restaurant owner and you want to open up a restaurant in Hutto, you will pay $50,000 more, in this example I gave them, in taxes in Hutto than you will in Round Rock. So if you want businesses to come here, you can't say, if you come here, then we'll lower the burden. We have to first watch out for how we're spending our money. That's why you go line by line. We have to make sure, are we doing things that we need or things that we want? And when it comes to the wants, then you have to go through and talk with the community and understand what exactly do you all want? Because we can't have the #1 safest city and have the best park system and have the best road system and do all those things while having the lowest taxes. And so we have to decide as a community, what do we want? A lot of people have told me they're very happy to have the #1 safest city, to also have us work on plans for our infrastructure. We have several road projects that are in the works. Are they behind schedule? Absolutely. The reason we haven't been able to do them ahead of time is because, as you heard from Randall, we misspent most of the money. We bought millions of dollars in land. There's $4 million we can't even account for that was in bond things. So some of the reason we don't have things done are decisions on the past. You go through, you do these decisions in the public, you don't do anything in the back, you go line by line. The city only represents about 20% of your tax bill. We also have to work with the ISD and with the county on ways that we can also help them. We have a big project potentially coming to Hutto. We're not asking the county for a whole bunch of help on that. Development needs to pay for itself.
Okay, so the first thing is first, it's a tax-based diversification, and I'm going to keep talking about that regularly. Without commercial, without industrial, there is nothing that the city can do for any of the other taxing entities. Right now, the entire burden is on our residents, with only an average of 9 commercial permits being issued over the past years. That's a huge weight put all the way on our residents. And then we're losing businesses right now almost weekly. We've lost 4 in the past 5 weeks to neighbors like Taylor and Round Rock and Georgetown. And that's because we're not a business-friendly city. We interrogate and tell them how to operate. And a business owner wants to just run their business in a community and not be told how to operate their business. So if we bring in the commercial, we bring in the industrial, if we work with the county, and we work with the state to take incentives and put them on the table. That doesn't mean it's coming from the local tax base. That means it's coming from the county and the state. And incentives are what you have to do to bring in certain employers. Look at Round Rock with Dell. You cannot tell me that they didn't bring in a great incentive package to bring Dell into Round Rock, and now look at how much of that return has been brought back into the community. You have to start at some point, because if you keep going, no new revenue, no tax, lower property, everything across the board, and it's just solely on your residents, that means crumbling infrastructure, no increase on your wastewater capacity treatment facilities. You don't know where your water is going to be coming from because you're not going to be drilling more wells. And these are issues, like these are the core basic services that municipal government is focused to do. So as we keep growing, because we're not going to stop growing, it's happening, it's been happening, we've known this for multiple years now. We have to keep up with that rate of growth, and we have to work with all of the other entities to ensure that it doesn't fall on the residents.
What is happening in Hutto right now is scary across the country. It's really, we have a compound of issues. We have the situation going on globally, and then we are recovering from the financial impact of the last few years. So we've got layers of problems here. But what I would do is take the same mentality I took when I decided to quit my job and stay home to raise our kids. Is that it took creative budgeting. All right, anybody can put down infrastructure and fulfill wants and desires with an unlimited checkbook, but it takes financial finesse to work within a limited budget while still meeting the needs of the people and then adding in the wants. So my plan to keep people in their houses is to lead with the discernment of economic priorities. For example, the ISD building a stadium over schools isn't a decision that I would have supported. Doesn't relate to the city council just as much as incentives doesn't relate to the city council, because that comes through the Economic Development Corporation. We have seen huge results, positive results, when the city council went through the budget line item by line item. And if you watch those meetings, you'll see that not everybody was on board with that, as it would have been too time consuming. But in the end, the city was able to offer a no new revenue rate. I have been here long enough and paid the taxes long enough and seen the growth to wonder why my taxes aren't already being offset, and that's because businesses coming in, we were so friendly to business, we didn't even charge them impact fees. We didn't even charge them then. And so to blame what's happened in the past few years on those decisions is wrong.
All right, so to answer the question, how would I ensure that the residents of Hutto are not out-taxed of their homes? My answer would be to diversify the tax base to include retail. You get sales tax from retail businesses, commercial and industrial partners as well that bring investment to the community. It takes a load off of the residential taxpayer whenever the market is diversified and there's multiple players contributing. The residents need to be invested in the community, and that's how they are investing in Hutto, is through their tax dollar. So it doesn't need to be seen in a negative light. Of course, taxes are taxes. They must be paid, but the residents need to see the results of what their tax dollars are going towards. And those dollars, whenever you diversify with retail, commercial, and industrial, those dollars stay in your community. They don't leave your community. They stay in Hutto. So then it can be allocated in the city to provide better services. To kind of go off of, the economic development incentives, the mentioning of Dell. Dell, their investment in Round Rock actually funds a large percentage of the city services. Without that, Round Rock could be crippled if Dell was not successful. So just overall, we need to diversify our tax base so that, thank you.
Let me know when you're ready. So when I started here, my taxes in my house have not moved, has doubled. And with even a homestead exemption, because we've had huge appreciation of our homes, every year I'm going to hit that 10% cap every year. So that means in 7.2 years, my taxes will double again. This is a big problem. This is why I'm getting involved to run for council, because this is not sustainable. We have a couple of problems with it. Primarily, 2/3 of your tax bill does come from the ISD. So what can we do from a council side? Yes, we can keep the no new revenue and keep our spending in check, but that's a very small percentage of your budget and your tax bill when you have the county and the ISD. That's why we need to bring the large economic incentives, because I did also go through the Hippo Nation University, which is the school finance reform. And on that side of it, there's two funding vehicles. There's M&O, which is maintenance and operation. That's tied and controlled by the state, and it's based on the number of students. The cost is based on a per student ratio. So anytime you build new homes and they have people in, students in them, that increases their costs. The other side of it is the INS, which is the debt service to build the schools and stuff like that. That's a separate fund. So if we get large corporations coming in, just like they did on Thursday, where they capped the M&O side so that we don't have that money going out of state, because it doesn't change. If we raise the rate or if they lower the rate, the state dictates how much you can keep in district. So that part we can't control. They did not cap the INS side, which means that large development will then pay the full build out of their property to pay towards our schools. But they're not students. They didn't add any additional cost on the M&O side. That's how we fix our problem, is by the large taxation rates. And then we can fully build our infrastructure by also making those tax reinvestment zones. So the other person was incorrect saying that the EDC controls all that. We only control a small portion of the sales tax. Thank you.
I've heard several falsehoods here. Number one is that the budget of the city isn't entirely on the backs of the citizens. We have had, if it wasn't for our sales tax revenue that increased mainly because of Home Depot and Lowe's, we would have had a terrible time through COVID. But because of COVID, people were home and they did home projects, and they went to Home Depot and they went to Lowe's and they bought things. Now you can say, oh my goodness, that's still on the back of the taxpayer. Well, yeah, but they didn't have to go to Hutto to buy their materials. They could have gone someplace else. Or they could have hired a contractor. He could have bought the supplies someplace else. So it's not entirely on the backs of the homeowners. And for instance, Emory Farms, they complain all the time about the industrial facility behind them. But they pretend that industrial facility isn't also paying taxes. The restaurants they go to are paying taxes, and you're going to pay sales taxes whether you are not, okay? The hotels are paying taxes. It's not all on the backs of the taxpayers, and to say that is a total falsehood. We do need to keep taxes down, and I think the city right now is doing everything they can do to do that. I would advise the citizens, and here I'm putting the burden on you, the citizens of Hutto, to start screaming holy hell about an ISD tax that makes up 45% of our taxes. Is my time up?
Yes.
No, okay. 45% is our taxes. And they got an increase of revenue. Okay. The revenues go up, they still raise taxes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. Mandy, this question. What role, if any, should a leader in the faith community play in politics, even at the city level? I need to repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Wait, it's to Mandy.
Well,
Yeah, I'm
just to
gonna
repeat,
repeat.
just
Oh.
in general.
I don't know if I'm screaming in the microphone.
You're not at all.
Okay. What role, if any, should a leader in the faith community play in politics, even at the city level?
Thank you. I definitely feel a bit thrown off by the question just because that's not for me to determine. That's on the individual faith leaders themselves. I would like to think that their role would be that of encouraging their community to be engaged civically, to vote, to be educated, to ask questions, and to discern. But other than that, our faith leaders are residents generally. They're usually part of the community. They have every right to voice an opinion, to partake in community forums, to ask questions of leadership, governmental leadership, and to call out injustice, just like any other resident does that pays property taxes. I don't see that there's anything that I, as a council member, should dictate for our faith community whatsoever. So again, I think that it would just be reminding their community to discern, ask questions, and go vote.
Well, this is a first faith question in my 4 campaigns. But I like this. I like this question a lot because I have a strong faith. But that's mine, and it's personal, and everybody has their own, and that's between them and whatever they believe. And our country's founding was that everybody is included, regardless of what they think, and very strict lines of separation between church and state. So when it comes to a leader in the faith community and their involvement in local politics, I believe that their role is to act as more of a guide and not pick sides, not to point blame, but to unite the community. For example, this forum today is made possible through Christ the Rock Church hosting this forum here. And without that, it wouldn't have been able to happen. So that is a wonderful involvement. However, when we have religious faith leaders that are persecuting others in the community, using their metrics of values to impose on other people, then I think we're stepping over a line as human beings cohabitating this earth, regardless of whether they wear a robe or not. So to draw in, and you'll see this not just in Hutto, but you'll see it a lot more, especially in our county elections coming up. You'll see candidates leaning into their God and using their God. But I can tell you that my God is between me and him, and it has nothing to do with how I think other people should be ruled, because that is not in the intention of spirituality. It's a personal choice. And I appreciate this question and the conversation beginning an open discussion.
All right. Well, thank you to whoever posed this question. I think this is a great question for us up here. As far as the role of the faith community and its role in its activity in politics at the local level, I believe that it should serve as just leading the community and being a liaison to get people more involved. Like for instance, this forum right here, it's being hosted by Christ the Rock. This is a liaison. This is an opportunity for us to come out here and to answer your questions. Also, the faith community, sometimes they do host the elections, the polling places that you go to. They do serve that role. I think that's a great win. And also, I don't know if this is staying in a clear path, but we really saw this tested during COVID, where local and county officials were dictating what the faith community could and could not do. because of COVID protocols that changed daily, hourly. We saw this happening, that government was, getting involved in the faith community, and there definitely should be a separation between church and state, and it should be the church should be the liaison and to encourage the community to come together and strengthen the community.
Well, I can't speak to particular leaders, but I feel that, as a Christian that does attend a local church, that the only thing that I would ask of our leaders is that they would pray for the people who are on city and governmental staff, as we've been called to do. And outside of that, to let people know that, hey, there is an election, go look at the candidates, learn about it, but not to endorse any particular one, because that's, separation of church and state. But I do feel like that we are called to pray for our leaders and those that have been put in authority in that role. And as far as, the other issues, is we do keep that as a partner. We can have them to be reach out when we do emergency preparedness task force. Maybe we can reach out to some of the local churches and see if they can also be centers for when we have like the tornadoes and stuff. They can be a tornado shelter, so there maybe can be some communications to reach out with all of them. But that's once again not related to politics. It's just for being community supporting across what we have here in the town. And we saw that with the ice storm a year ago as well. So I think there is definitely a need for that. Council meetings also start typically with a prayer, and sometimes they invite different clergy to give that invocation. I think it'd be nice if we had like a rotation that was like set for all of the different churches, because then that lets everyone in the community know who's available. So that's something that I'd like to bring. But as far as that'd be as close to any kind of a formal thing between any groups at all. Thank you.
I have several points I'd like to make about that, and I feel really strongly, and my faith is strong. I think the religious leaders, faith leaders, should be involved in the local government, and there should be partnership between the local government and the faith leaders. However, I do not believe that faith leaders should infringe on the freedom of speech of the people in the community that may or may not be going to their church or believing in their particular religion or denomination. And I saw some of that on Facebook just recently, where one of the big faith leaders in the community was like telling people what they could and couldn't say on Facebook, and that was wrong. On the other hand, I think faith leaders and the faith leaders here in Hutto are very good with outreach programs, and I think that I'm glad they're getting involved in that. However, I know this particular church wanted to do an outreach program with, I think it was called Patriot Fitness. They wanted to have after-school activities for children, fitness programs, all kinds of fitness programs, and they were partnering with this church to rent some space that the church was not using. And they went to the city last August. That didn't get approved until last month. Is my time up or not?
You said 22 seconds.
Oh, that's cool. I thought that I
You
heard
heard
the
beeps.
little beep. Okay, so I think I'm disappointed with the faith leaders that were called in by the city the city was asking them, what do you think the city can do to help you as faith leaders in the community? And very few pastors showed up, I think 3 or 4. And of them, they talked about infrastructure.
What's your time there? You hear that sound?
So I'll be honest, I didn't think I'd ever hear this question come up in a municipal election. I think it's a direct result of my opponent's involvement in a church and serving as a chairman of the, I think it's the faith committee, or I'm not sure exactly the words, but it's very ironic that you serve in multiple roles in a church, and then all of a sudden that church now becomes involved in local politics. I think it blurs the line between, everybody up here is talking about separation of church and state, but we clearly all saw that doesn't happen. And so when churches start endorsing candidates or start pushing a certain issue for candidates, or even candidates abuse their office. I mean, we've even had it to where a person up on this stage has gone into City Hall and said, I'm trying to help a church by, can you help me get certain information, but never actually tell the city they're actually on the building committee of that said church to get the information. Any of you out there, you would have to go through a process to get that information. When an elected official uses their position to get something that you, the public, cannot get, that's against the law. And so we're blurring some lines here that do not need to be blurred. It also gets into potentially an IRS issue. I mean, you're a nonprofit because you're not involved in some of these. If you want to be a political action committee and you want to get involved and you want to try to help people vote a certain way and you want to have campaign rallies and you want to have signs out there, that's great. But you may need to start paying taxes, because I'm not an IRS agent, but I don't know how they view that. So I'm very disappointed that our community has gotten to the point to where now when people go to serve on boards, are they on there to serve on a board to actually help that board, or are they using that board and that position as a manner to further their political career, further their political agenda? That part's disappointed me. So, but I will end it with this. I think there's a position for prayer, because I think we all need it, but I do think we need to strongly have a separation between the two.
I'll start with you, Nicole. What do you believe minimum wage should be with current house, grocery, gas prices, and etc.? If y'all are
Minimum
okay
wage?
with it.
What I think minimum wage should be?
What do you believe minimum wage should be with current house, grocery, gas prices, etc.?
Okay, well, wow, this is another problem that is not just Hutto, but also globally. I believe that minimum wage needs to be 30% or 30% more than somebody's rent. So we've seen rental prices in the area go up. In Austin, I think it was like 26%. Other areas have gone up 40%. We haven't seen any wages going up. Inflation has gone up 8%. I don't know about anybody else's companies, but mine has a 4% cap on merit increases. So we're already losing money. I don't think that it is the place of government to determine minimum wage. I think that is mixing business with just the basic politics of government. I think the relationship of a government to the people is more of a parental kind of child relationship, where you at some point are not codependent anymore on your government. And a lot of times we look for easy, quick solutions and answers to the government when it's not in their wheelhouse. So the fact of minimum wage is actually determined by the market. Is that if you have a business and you want to get talented employees to come in to work to support your business, you're going to have to pay them a competitive market rate. And that fluctuates in geographical areas, it fluctuates in industry. But what we really need to be focusing on, I think, more is that corporations paying their fair share of taxes and contributing, and not just on the local level, but on the higher levels as well, to put more money back into the pockets of the people. Again, this is a global issue, and I don't know if we've seen anything like this in any of our lifetimes, but I think it's going to take a lot of collaboration to find creative solutions.
So as far as what I believe the minimum wage should be, I don't have a dollar amount that what it should be. I do believe that it does need to be changed. It does need to be increased. To what dollar amount, I'm not quite sure. It's definitely dependent on and determined, by the market, what's going on right now with inflation, the cost of goods, services. It's a global issue. With supply and demand, I am not an economist. It's very, very interesting, but there's a lot of factors that go into play with this. It is honestly, this is a federal issue to increase the minimum wage. This is a federal issue. The local level of government, this is this is not our role. It's to provide services to our residents, public safety, roads. So that is, it definitely needs to be changed though because of the situation that we're in. And I've never lived through anything like this. We've never lived through the past, something like what's happened in the past couple of years. And now with the increase in the cost of everything, it's definitely impacting everyone. And it's definitely impacting the residents of Hutto. It's not just a Hutto issue, it's across the board US issue and globally too. So, but it is a federal issue. This is not like a local matter. Thank you.
So minimum wage, it needs to be completely driven by the market. I think the federal level is 7.75. We're seeing $14, $15, $18 per hour for things here. So clearly you don't need to have a floor raised, especially when they're tied to, 3 times the minimum wage is what goes to certain unions and other places. So that's not really a long-term solution. It has really nothing to do with the local governmental level. But what we can do is if we bring, I keep hammering back, if we bring large commercial developments in industry here, so there are better paying jobs in the area, then that you get away from the minimum wage discussion because people can live in Hutto and work here, so then they don't have the increased cost to drive somewhere, having to pay tolls every day to then get a wage that they can afford to live. And by getting the taxation under control, then you can afford to live in the home as well. So I think that's where we help it on our side. We've had some groundbreakings of some new developments that people that just come out of that UTech community college, they can immediately get a job and then get a job that they can then pay and then be able to live. So that's why we need diversity of income of housing, and then we need the better paying jobs. And if we do that, the market will take care of itself for paying for those higher skills and having a better diversity besides just fast food restaurants that obviously people can't work there and live in Hutto unless they're like in high school living with their parents or something. So it's a challenge, and that's how we can help that.
Yeah, we could say that it's not a local issue, but it really is, and the cost of living and adjusting it is a federal thing. But the city can do a lot to keep down the cost of living so that people won't have to rely on some legislative set minimum wage. And like others have been saying in here, market forces at this time driving wages, not the minimum wage. I'm a little bit of a laissez-faire person. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it means leave them alone. And they'll regulate on their own. But as an example, when I was working for the civil service, I noticed that every now and then our travel allowance cap would go up. And oh my goodness, we're going to be able to stay at a nicer hotel, or we're going to be able to eat out instead of having sandwiches in our hotel room because our travel allowances are going up. Well, lo and behold, right after the travel allowances go up, the hotel rates go up. So, I think it's just like the dog chasing his tail. But the bottom line, the real thing that we need to work on is the cost of living. Keep the cost of living in Hutto at a level where people making the wages that they are making wherever they're working can afford to stay here. Not just people that own homes, but also people that rent. And that really does affect the senior citizens a lot and the young families a lot. Every time taxes go up, the landlord raises the rent because they don't have any exemptions at all. And they don't have any caps. They might have a senior that's living in their house and renting from them, but their taxes are not capped. Thank you.
All right, so we keep hearing a lot about diversifying and bringing in these large companies. That sounds great, but look around in Central Texas. We've been bringing in large companies and, quote, diversifying our tax base, and is anybody in the area's tax burden going down? It keeps going up. Is there one part in our metro area where people say, hey, I don't need a minimum wage because life is so great and the cost of living is cheap? What we're doing is when you have an economy where the unemployment rate is 2.6% and you bring in a company that has 1,000 jobs, we don't have homes for these people. We don't have people looking for work, so we have to move 1,000 people here. That's 1,000 people looking for homes that we don't want to build, right, and that we don't have for sale. That's what's driving up the price. So a lot of the things that we need to do, it goes back to this no new revenue. It's not an income issue, it's a spending issue. Every time the government raises taxes on everybody, what happens is that business owner isn't eating the cost. They spread it to the cost of milk, to the cost of bread, to the cost of eating out. And then in turn, we as employees go to our employers and we say, hey, we need more money because my groceries used to cost me $100, now they cost me $130. So then the employers turn around and what do? They end up giving you more money, and then as they give more money, they pass the cost on. That's what inflation is. It's when the government is overspending, and that's what our problem is. That's why we spent trillions. In our personal business, we've already raised our wages 2 different times. And we've also had to raise prices also, because we don't make enough money to give people $2 or $3 more an hour and not raise prices. And we raise prices, and so what are we gonna have? Less people shop there, less people will frequent it, or they'll go less often. And so that actually hurts businesses. So at the end of the day, when you're hearing everybody talk, it all comes down to the fix is not giving more money, which by the way, the city has no involvement. The state can set, the market should be the ones that do it. It's all because of spending.
First of all, minimum wage has no purview legislatively with the local government. However, what we have to be doing is creating a very strong economy of scale here locally that gives options, gives variability across the board, and create that strong economy that will eventually flow outward. Growing up with an independent pharmacist as a parent, she ran her own pharmacy with an independent physician who ran his own medical clinic, and with a sister who started her own law firm, and myself as an entrepreneur for 5 years. You know that the local taxing entity doesn't set the market and doesn't get involved with the market, but if you want to change what it is that you're having to do for keeping and ensuring that your employees are getting a livable wage, you go and you take it to your legislators on the state level. You go to the federal level. I grew up with parents that regularly were in DC or in Austin fighting legislatively as a pharmacist, as a physician, and as attorneys to change how things were doing with the economies of scale and with market regulation. If you're not gonna take the initiative and go and fight where it actually gets changed, then you're gonna be a victim of it. And that's why I encourage people to get involved with the state and federal level, which is where the market is so drastically hit and the determining factors are there that really impact us locally. Minimum wage should be equal to a livable wage. I full-heartedly believe that, and it is market driven. And so we as a city council have an obligation and an onus to bring in more opportunities for you to work in different types of industry and give you that variation that you need to find better places of employment as the market changes.
Amber, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on bringing more affordable housing to Hutto?
My thoughts on bringing more affordable housing to Hutto is to have a diverse set of housing options for Hutto. So we need townhomes, apartments, of course, homes. We need nicer homes with development, with industrial and commercial businesses coming to the area, especially Samsung and Taylor. Their wages, again, going back to income, their wages are going to be higher, so they may require a home or want or desire, right? This is their own personal want or desire. They may want a nicer home, which would cost, say $1 million. So my answer would be just to diversify, to have options for the residents, and depending on your income and your desires and your wants and needs, that you have those options, and you would be happy in Hutto with your options.
So on planning and zoning, I've had lots of different opportunities come up, from apartments to new resort-style mini homes that will be in, allow a diverse transition from someone going from an apartment but not ready for full home ownership. Because right now we don't have anything like that in Hutto. We've had several of them come onto council. They've either been tabled or they've put onus on them, so they haven't been able to get approved. And anytime that happens, we have a dearth of housing, prices are gonna go up. So we have plats that are done, and that's why we need to get our infrastructure in place so that we can get the diversity of housing across the spectrum of different income levels that support everyone that we have. And every time we delay them coming in that are those other types, we are gonna, the demand is gonna make the price go up. It's simple economics. And then that then creates a higher taxation valuation for my home, which means and everyone that lives here. And so it's just a triggering effect that continues. So like I said, we have 2 apartment things that are currently coming before council very soon. Planning and zoning agenda, we have one of these diversity homes I'm talking about. You should come check it out on our meeting next week. And we need to look at all of those as we look to approving them so that we have that full portfolio. We also had one of our issues, one of our city managers left because he claimed he couldn't find a house that would be at his executive level housing inside the city limits. So when we go for that next city manager and we still have that as an ordinance requiring that they must live within the city limits, where are they gonna live? How are you gonna get that next person that doesn't just wanna live in an apartment or sublet a house, or there's no construction, they're waiting. So we're in a real bind on the housing side for affordability.
I don't remember the statistics exactly, but back in the 80s, well, in the early 90s, I read that a higher wage job generates on the average 4 lower wage jobs. Because the person needs a housekeeper, they need a babysitter, they need someone to do their lawn, they need clerks at the grocery store, they need service industry, that creates service industry jobs for them. So we do need the lower, the lower priced homes, affordable homes. That they need to be efficient as well, because you bring the homes in, and if they're not energy efficient, the people can't afford the utility bills. I mean, in Montague County, where we had the homeless ministry, people did without gas in the summertime because they needed the air conditioning, the electric air conditioning. They did without electric in the wintertime because they didn't, in the wintertime, they didn't need air conditioning, but they needed the heat. So, I mean, they survive, you know. So I think we need innovative designs. The ones I've seen coming before council are not that innovative. They're not cost-effective designs. They're not efficient designs. They look good and they're fancy looking, but they're not efficient homes. And I'm thinking that we need a lot more fourplexes. The homeless shelter that I designed in Montague County was a fourplex. Of course, it was designed for homeless, so it was very small. But each unit was totally self-sufficient. They had private baths, they had their own kitchen, you know, separate entry, which was pretty private. So we need to make sure we consider those people that just don't have the money to buy these expensive homes.
So, to me, this is a metro area-wide issue, okay? There's nothing Hutto can do. We can build as many homes as we want. Your home price will not go down. Your cost of living will not drop. We can build none, okay? And that won't change it. It's an area-wide issue, as I touched on earlier. We're bringing in thousands and thousands of jobs to a market that's not looking for thousands and thousands of jobs. So we have to move people here. The demand of people, you've got Tesla that wants to hire 10,000 people. We don't have 10,000 people in the metro area looking for employment. So you have to move 10,000 people here, and they are causing a demand issue for homes. And so it doesn't matter what you build, how you build it, until I'm not saying we stop economic development, but you have to slow things down. Too much of anything good is bad. I said a year ago that I love Bluebell ice cream, but if I go and eat a gallon of it a day, that's not going to be good for me. That's kind of what we're doing as an economy here, is we keep bringing in jobs, and we keep saying the jobs and these commercial developments, they're going to drive everything down, but we're not seeing it. All we're seeing is ever increasing prices. The other thing is, it goes back to taxes. I mean, the reason rents are going to keep rising $200 to $300 for people is because there's not a homestead cap on these apartments. And so these apartments are going to have to pass this on to the public. When you raise taxes, I'm not talking tax rates, when you raise taxes, you are actually hurting the people who need the help the most. Because the rich person can still put in a pool. The rich person can pay the increase. But the person who is not rich, who is struggling right now, they're the ones that's renting that home, renting that apartment. They're the one that then immediately, within a year, gets the increase. And so then we sit around and talk about how do we help that person? Let's raise taxes and we'll use that to help them. We're not. It's a demand issue. You heard it, simple economics. You got to cut the demand or build the supply up. We don't have enough land to handle the supply, so we need to work with the area governments.
To bring more affordable housing into Hutto, first thing that we have to do, which really hasn't been done with the council in my time of seeing what they've been doing, is starting to understand our current resident base, their makeup, the demographics, and then forecasting incoming residentials that are going to be moving here with growth. Then the city council needs to work together and set a vision that outlines what's missing. What have we not addressed in development? We'll pass that vision over to the city manager and our staff and allow for the developers to know that this is what's missing and this is what we're going to approve and this is what we're going to pay for. What we're going to incentivize. It's imperative that we zone the community of Hutto correctly so that we drive the direction of what's built and not change it because we want to give a favor over to certain developers that we're buddies with. And then we have to educate the public on what Section 42 housing is, what other affordable housing options that are out there that won't hurt the community like Section 8 housing. The city council hasn't created a vision in multiple years. They haven't told developers or the growing community what's missing and what's needed. We haven't worked with our community partners to really diversify the missing housing that we have here. So people are getting priced out. They don't have anywhere else to go because all we have is starter homes. We have to have duplexes, we have to have townhouses, we have to have cottages, we have to have more rental opportunities. And we have plenty of land in Hutto. We're one of the fewer communities in Williamson County with lots of land. It's all about strategically making that land available and zoning it correctly.
When I moved to Hutto in 2006, these starter homes were affordable housing. We paid less than $80 a square foot, which is cheaper than what you're going to find in any of these affordable housing, high-density, multi-family developments that are coming. We have some right near our neighborhood that have already begun development in an area where there's no commercial to support the need for groceries or jobs. There's no education available, which makes transportation difficult, no access to childcare. So I believe that the affordable living that is provided needs to be located in an area which makes sense for the people to thrive.
Oh.
The price, it went off. Oh, no. Okay. So the price of housing also goes back to the conversation about minimum wage. And so we have this huge rise in inflation, and now it becomes the burden of the council and local governments to make this affordable housing when it's the market that is dictating this. So the best way to make affordable housing is to reduce the amount of taxes that people pay. Is although my payment is small from when I bought 16 years ago, as Randall said, our taxes have doubled. And that's going to be driving people out of their homes, which is very concerning this year unless some dramatic changes are made to the budget, and not just in the city, but also in the county and ISD level. That is all on affordable housing.
How are we doing on time? What time is it?
Right now it is 3:24.
Okay.
You
All
did
right.
good.
Randall, we'll back to you. What is the plan on doing something in downtown Hutto? Is this a taxpayer issue?
Well, we've had some discussions on the EDC board, and that council has debated about what we can do about the downtown. You know, one of the suggestions that I floated is that we should, you know, look at getting the Downtown Business Alliance going so that they can talk about what they need as a group to be able to be successful. We're looking at doing some studies of what we can do from the Economic Development Corporation side to revitalize the downtown area. One idea that I had was, you know, possibly we could look at getting when we do the Christmas tree lighting, we also have like maybe a Santa Claus there, so that we start creating an event where every weekend in the November, December timeframe, people are knowing to go to Hutto, to the downtown area. I had talked before when I ran that, you know, yes, we don't have an ordinance that doesn't allow open container, but if we had a sip and stroll day that we start advertising where we can go from the co-op district as it gets fully built out after COVID delay, and we have walkability between the downtown and the co-op, that we can create a new downtown area that people want to go to as a family. Right now, there's only a couple of businesses that are open in the evening, so it's limited. So as we can build more and incentivize more businesses to come into the area that can do what, provide those activities, then that will help revitalize and raise the tide of all boats in that sector. So on the taxpayer burden side, it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. What we can do is we could maybe look at making it a taxable reinvestment zone, so we could do infrastructure improvements in that area that's being paid for by that growth. Once again, infrastructure paying, their development paying for the growth of that particular area. Right. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
What is the plan on doing something in downtown Hutto? Is this a taxpayer issue?
I don't think there is a plan. I think there needs to be a plan. I think there's some ideas that have been floated, and I think the Downtown Alliance is an extremely good idea, because I don't think the downtown businesses have been served by any other method, say the Chamber of Commerce, like they should be. So, but I think if we had a Downtown Alliance, I shouldn't say think, I believe that the Downtown Alliance should fund itself. I do not think City Council should have their hands in that. I don't think we should pay for lights down there. I think the Alliance should be a business alliance. I envision some things for the downtown area. I don't know how realistic they are, but it's an idea. I would like to see the downtown area, East Street, for instance, all the way over maybe to between Farley and 79, and from 1660 over to Main Street, be a pedestrian area, a pedestrian-only area. But that would only work if we had multi-level parking. And I believe as much as some people hate the idea of multi-level parking, I think where the old, and I'm kind of cutting in on Mike's ideas here, where the old lumber yard used to be, there's still some concrete out there. I don't see why we couldn't have multi-level parking right there on 1660. And then the people could walk all through Old Town. And we could recreate the buildings that used to be on the opposite side of the street, the ones that were, I think, burned down, or maybe it was a tornado. But anyway, it's just an idea.
So I don't think it's a taxpayer issue. I think it's a taxpayer opportunity.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've been pushing as an idea at the EDC is that the city can help fund the building of downtown. One of the biggest issues we have outside of lack of parking is that there's not a lot of space down there to do anything. And so businesses in that type of environment feed off other businesses. And so when you only have the ability, I mean, you go down there, you have a dentist, an accountant, you have a lawyer, you have a pharmacy. If you want a thriving downtown and you go look at the other downtowns like Georgetown, Round Rock, what do you have? You have restaurants, you have bars, you have a nightlife, you have things that generate tax revenue, that generate profits for the building and landowners. That's why I've been pushing the Business Alliance, because Round Rock has one, Austin has one, Georgetown has one. They run independently. They're not involved with the government at all. And government, in my opinion, screws most things up. If it works so well, we wouldn't be paying taxes in locally, state, and we wouldn't be paying them federally. But if you turn the control over that district over to private business owners, every decision they make is 100% to the benefit of them. If they make a good decision, that benefits them. If they make a bad decision, it hurts them and they learn from it. You get the government in there and we start floating ideas. Most of us don't actually have a payroll. Most of us don't actually most of the people on council have never paid a triple net, have never even negotiated that. You get with the business owners, they have. The other thing is the parking. I'd have brought it up. There is the ability to build a parking garage, but I don't think it should be fully on the city. If it benefits the property owners and the building owners, I think there's a way. That's where the Downtown Business Alliance, it's a self-taxing entity. They can grow. We have talked about a TERS to help reinvest the money. So there are things coming. It's just going to take a little bit more time.
So right now, the city's undergoing the comprehensive 2040 plan, and this is community-wide from city proper through the extraterritorial jurisdiction all the way to a comprehensive 2040 downtown plan. And honestly, until the 2040 plan is done in the next 8 months, we're not going to have the strategies in place and a vision that's been formulated from the residents themselves on what needs to happen downtown. And the council is just going to be shooting in the dark trying to play a guessing game until we have all the resident input completed and the actual strategy handed over to us from Freeze and Nichols on what could happen and might be good opportunities for the downtown area. Take them or leave them, we have a Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Commerce has already been working for a year with their new board that they have on a downtown alliance and an industrial alliance. The conversation that happened on the dais 2 weeks ago was completely premature and removed from the discussion those in the community that are actually the voices of who would be on the alliance. It's not our job as the government to get involved with what's happening economically downtown or to tell them that they need to create a group of people and get together. It's already being done, and as Councilmember Kinsey pointed out on the dais that night, we're duplicating efforts, and we're not celebrating those who are already doing the work in our community. We're trying to glorify our own involvement in everybody else's business, like the ISD and our businesses and our chamber, and trying to do their work for them rather than giving them the support they need or stepping up to the plate and celebrating what's already happening with them. Much of what's missing downtown would be addressed with the finishing out of the co-op, but MMA Partners has no incentive or desire to do anything down there until the current mayor's gone. So if we want parking garages, which are 3 that they are planning to bring down there, then we need to allow them to get back to work.
Okay, so clearly some people haven't been here longer than others, so I'll just catch you up, is that Hutto has had a comprehensive plan and a design and a build out through the Universal Development Code for many years. And unfortunately, with the previous administration, those plans went by the wayside, so our former city manager could do the businesses that he thought fit. People have already spoken, we've already defined this information. This 2040 plan that's being developed now is to get us back on track and closer to where we came from. In addition to that, the plan for downtown was that the co-op would have been an extension of Old Town, that it would have flowed together with old buildings and the shops and make a much bigger downtown. And like I said, those plans went out the window in the last 3 years, and the co-op land was given to MA Partners in exchange for the overpriced city hall that we have, and they do have a developmental agreement with requirements of what they're required to build, regardless of who is mayor. To be quite brutally honest, as far as the chamber goes, because this information hasn't been discussed and aired openly, and the director of the chamber is directly involved with a federal lawsuit against the city, signed a letter accusing the city of being racist and got us involved in this. And as he's continuing to get paid by the chamber, there will forever be a rift between the city and the businesses. The city, the government, this council would serve the people. Businesses acting like petulant children coming up to the city and saying, "What are you going to do for us?" is not by design. When we start allowing businesses and corporate sponsorships to sway and lobby political leaders is when we're going to get into big problems. Problems we're trying to dig out of, never mind get back into with a misvote.
So, I agree with Ida that right now it doesn't seem like there's a vision for the downtown Hutto area, but if I'm elected, I want to work with the other council members to start that process. There's multiple pieces of the puzzle that come into play with the 2040 comp plan, getting input from the residents. Of course, the business owners and leaders in the downtown area do need a voice in that as well. So that's very, very important. There's a lot of pieces to come into play, but I think that Hutto is almost to the point of creating that vision, it's exciting for Hutto, and I think it's important that the downtown area be tied to the co-op as well, as the co-op is growing in that area, because whenever I first moved to Hutto, it was exciting seeing the silos being moved and what was coming next, and then it fell flat on its face. And so now we just gotta get it restarted again, get the engine churning, so that the downtown area thrives and the businesses thrive too. To answer the question, is it a taxpayer issue? No. The council creating a vision with all the pieces of the puzzle, if elected, the council will be creating this vision for Hutto for the taxpayer, right? So no, it's not a taxpayer issue. It is local government creating this vision for the taxpayers to serve them well. Thank you.
Okay. Ida? Do you believe the city and the school board need to work together as we grow as a community?
Yes. And I think yes, we need to work together. Right now, it doesn't look promising, but hopefully it will get better in the future. A lot of things have happened in the past that have caused angst between the two groups, but between the police force and the school district, between the school district and the council. Those things have to be worked out. I have a lot of faith that the school board makeup will receive new infusion of people that are more willing to work with the city. We have 6 people running for 3 offices on the school board. We have 6 people that are running for 3 offices on council. And I believe it looks better for the future. But I can't speak directly to that at this time. I'm sorry, but that's not a strong point of mine. I know the stories that have been told about things that have happened in the past that have caused stress between the city and the school district, but definitely, yes, they do need to work together more closely.
So I think anytime you can work together with someone, you're able to achieve more from that. But I think also you can't, there's this thought right now that you have to agree with everything someone else does. Any disagreement is bad. I look at it like any disagreement is an opportunity to come up with something even better. And so, I look at things and go, there's 7 members on the council, 7 members on the school board. Between the 14 of us, we should be able to come up with something that we may not all agree on different parts, but ultimately we agree on the overall direction. And we all want nice things, and we all have to decide how do we get those. The state has set up the ISD and the city in a manner that where our interests cannot and will not always align 100%. Some things that are great for the city are bad for the ISD, and some things that are great for the ISD are bad for the city. Take we always hear sales tax generating businesses will help lower the cost of living in Hutto. Not for the school district because they don't get any of the sales tax. It only helps the city. Residences, we added 2,000 homes last year. The average home is paying over $4,000 a year in ISD property taxes. That's over $8 million in perpetuity that they're going to get. So we're not here, we share a lot of information. I think we need to work together on, bringing businesses in that are not going to tax us more, but actually make the cost of living better. But I think there's also a method to where, for instance, when the ISD brings in a development, they need to follow the same rules everybody else follows. And we work with them on some, but we can't afford to, as a city, we're 1/4 the size of the ISD. We can't put in crosswalks. We can't put in infrastructure that the school normally would do. So we need to work with them on that. When we have developers come, we try to get them school sites. We try everywhere we can to get them things, but to expect us always to get along or 100% be at the same decision making, I don't think that's healthy. It's good to have civil discourse.
Hutto is a fast growth city. We've known this for a couple of years now, and it's not changing anytime soon, especially as Williamson County is in the top 5 fastest growing counties in the United States. The problem that we keep running into is that recent leadership on the city side has constantly approached the relationship with the ISD, the ESD, the county, the state in an adversarial way. When we see things that aren't following our opinion of how it should go, we chunk out the agreement completely and walk away from the table. With my background in conflict resolution and mediation, you sit at the table and you actually work through it and you find terms that work for everybody. That's why Cedar Park was able to get perfect game. That's why our ISD has been lacking that relationship that goes back and forth with us, and it's constantly, every time they come to the podium to work with us on a development, it's a tense relationship that's being prepared for a fight from the council members up on the dais. You talk about disagreeing and seeing it as an opportunity, but you don't actually do that. And it's one thing to say that, and then it's another thing to actually act that way and employ it. So right now, we're not seen as an equal partner with all of the other entities that we should be working with. We're not a friend, and it doesn't mean that we always agree. It's knowing that you don't have to be disagreeable when you do disagree. It's that you sit down and discuss what's best for our community as a whole, because Hutto ISD and the city of Hutto, we're all trying to do what's best for the residents that live here. And if we're constantly fighting and throwing stones at glass houses before we even have our house in order, then that respect and the mutual respect that's needed to sit at a negotiating table together is lost completely, and you lose your opportunity to negotiate.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I just want to make sure that I'm staying on
Sure.
focus.
Do you believe the city and the school board need to work together as we grow as a community?
Yes, absolutely. It is important for us to work together in a symbiotic relationship in order so we can more efficiently take care of the needs of the community. I'll give you an example. The ISD recently put in fiber, and now the city is discussing fiber. Had that been coordinated to happen at both times, it might have saved each of us some money. Another example are the trees. Okay, so the city has established a unified development code that requires a certain amount of trees be planted per development. Yet we have the ISD coming up and asking for variance to the city. So this working relationship needs to be symbiotic. It needs to go both ways. I know some people want to just focus forward, but understanding the past is important so we can know how we got here and we can know how to get out of it and how to prevent it from happening again. Is that before our most recent terrible city manager, Otis Jones, we had a fantastic city manager, Karen Daly. After she left Hutto, she went to win the Lifetime Achievement Award. And when Karen came on, she was tasked with reviewing all of the interlocal agreements between the ISD, the ESD, the police department, to make sure that it was balanced and symbiotic and that the city wasn't being taken advantage of. That is what started the divide in our city between those agreements. So there are some people in this city who allowed the corruption to happen that are still here, that are causing those wedges and getting in the way of all of the organizations making the most of it.
So my answer would be absolutely that the city and the school board, they need to work together, especially for the betterment of the community. I'm all about teamwork. Of course, if you're a council member, you have your individual voice, but there's a time and a place to take that individual voice and sit at the table with others and start collaborating and participate in some teamwork to hash out some details that may not be pretty. There will be some, disagreements, as there should be, absolutely. As a community and a city, we can't be divided with, the city on one page and the ISD on another. For example, the most recent ISD deal with applied materials, with the Chapter 313 economic development incentive, we're going to have to, the city's going to have to work, or we're going to have to work with the ISD in order to, figure out the land and figure out the details and sit at the table and hash out these details if it does, get through the comptroller's office and moves forward. So absolutely, the city and the school board do need to collaborate for the betterment of Hutto.
All right, so get the final answer. Absolutely, we need to work with the school district. My wife's a school teacher, so I already in my own house work with the school district at my little level. But one of the ways that we can help is, they get demographic information coming in from the ISD, from the state level and everything. And when we're looking at our 2040 comp plan and zoning and densities of, if we're gonna say make this area a single family residence or a multifamily if it's zoned that way, we need to have that already kind of hashed out between the school district and the city of where those areas are going to be so they can future land use plan of where those schools need to be. I can tell you one of my daughters, we never moved. She went to 3 different elementary schools, lived on the same street. We don't want that kind of stuff to happen because that creates huge turnovers for children, not having the same friends across the street. Now they're best friends now at a different school. It's a challenge. by knowing ahead of time where those development demographics are going to be. Like at the time, we had a development where Carmel Creek was going to be commercial. Now it's high-rise, a bunch of apartments. That's going to change the demographic of what's at the Nadine Johnson Elementary School, for example, which is probably going to require redistricting, so my kids maybe ended up going to another elementary school. And it's only because of poor planning by not working with the city and the school, knowing ahead of time what those were going to be. In addition, if we really get them involved with the 2040 comp plan as well, they need to buy land that they don't own today for those future schools where they're going to be. If they wait 10 years from when they need that school to buy the land, it's going to cost 10 times as much. We talk about lowering the overall tax burden. This is one of the ways we help them. We identify where the growth based on our zoning and everything, where things are going to be, and then they can buy land near there, or when the development agreement comes, we work with the developer to say this set aside, and we know it needs to be this many acreage based on the site plans, because they have an elementary school plan to save costs. They use one development site plan. So we already know the sizes. If we have that relationship, we can save overall money for everyone.
All right, that concludes our discussion today. I appreciate all of you coming, as I'm sure the citizens of Hutto do as well. Citizens of Hutto, thank you. We will have an hour meet and greet with the candidates.
Closing
next
statements.
morning. I'm sorry?
Are we not going to have closing statements?
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's my
sorry.
fault. My fault. I'm sorry. Okay. I
We
apologize.
started down here.
There.
Yes.
Thank you.
Amberly?
Am I going first? Yes. Okay, thank you. So sorry. Well, thank y'all very much for being here for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. I really appreciate y'all coming out. Thank you for the great questions. I feel like they were very fair and open. And hopefully we were able to give you some more information about ourselves so that you can make an informed decision when the election does come up here shortly. Sorry. But yeah, thank y'all again for coming out. With my past experience, I've worked in the policy world, policy making, government, and I worked up in DC briefly. I know that in DC, or my perception, my experience there, because it was short-lived, was that the collaboration and the lack of the teamwork and a lot of politics over policy, that's what happens in DC. At the state level, I have experience in my current job at the state level with policy, and the state of Texas does work for Texans overall. They do a great job. There is, it's not a full-time legislature, and the sessions are 5 months long, so you have to get in there and get work done to, make laws and make better laws for Texas. At the local level, that's why I think that at the local level, it's very important that policy supersedes politics and personal opinions. It's all about the future of Hutto, so that it thrives in years to come, decades. That Hutto is a place where people are proud that they live, and they're happy to live in Hutto. With my experience, if elected, I am going to serve the residents of Hutto well in a positive light, and looking forward, and also just putting policy, good policy, and sitting down at the table with others and hashing out issues and putting that above politics, because local government does need to serve the residents and serve them well. Thank you.
I definitely appreciate this opportunity. I think forums are fun. I think they're a really good way for people to be informed and to make an educated vote. I just want to piggyback a little bit and elaborate on the design of municipal government is nonpartisan, because the issues that we face, we all face them, and it's not a side of the aisle. That's why you'll see my campaign signs are purple. It's because I don't identify with either party. I think extreme politics is dividing our country, and there's no place for it in local government. So if elected as a representative of the people in my purple color, that's exactly what I'll do, is try to bring us together. You might know a few things about me, I'll tell you a few more. If you don't know already, I'm a straight shooter, okay? You know where you stand with me, good or bad, okay? And that is a blessing and a curse, to be quite honest, is that people say that they want an honest person until they say something that impacts them, and then suddenly they become the target. I am an independent voter, always have been. I vote for the candidate. I'm not a politician, and I'm not striving to be in a higher office. I've taken on an activist role because I've looked around and I've gotten angry and I want change. And that's exactly what anger is for. It's a survival mechanism. It's an alert to tell us that something is wrong. And you can either choose to live there as a victim, or you can use it as a catalyst for improvement. And that's exactly what I'm doing, and that's exactly what I want to do. I offer unwavering integrity. And as you could see, if you are familiar with social media, that I have taken a lot of hits. I've taken a lot of social draggings for having an unpopular opinion, but I've stood by it because it's the right thing to do, and that's what we need our leaders to do. Not to be swayed by donations to your campaign, not to be swayed by corporations coming in, not to be swayed by your friends who are trying to make people like you. I have friends and they're fantastic. I'm not looking for more friends. I'm looking to do a job. I'm looking to fill a role. If you like me, that's fantastic, and if you don't, I hope you can understand where my policy making is coming from, and at least we can agree there. A couple other things, I root for the underdog. I grew up in New England. Okay, so the curse of the Bambino, it was a very long time before the Red Sox took the World Series, right? And so I am a rooter for the underdog, but I also am humble and triumph. I can tolerate other people's ideas and make room for diversity. I spoke out to try to get the Diversity and Inclusion Commission started, although we want to, put, anyway. And I believe that it is not just in people's looks, but it's also people's personalities. And I've been persecuted by the people as being mean because I'm standing up for what is right. But if that's what mean is, then color me mean.
There's an inherent civility that comes with being a native Texan that we've definitely lost, especially in this community with how we've approached the election season every year. People would rather listen to third-party accounts of facts and take the opinion as fact than have a face-to-face conversation and discuss civilly your concerns and your problems and the issues that are facing us on a day-to-day basis. And this all comes from the top down of who you elect in your local government and who the leaders are that you listen to in the community. When we allow bad behavior to persist on the dais, when we allow it to go out beyond the council chambers into the general public, and we don't shut it down and we don't demand better of each other, then we're going to keep being in an adversarial position and not get a lot of things done. Because then it becomes about ego rather than about fact and the betterment of the community as a whole. I've spent my whole life doing volunteer work. I traveled as a military child all over the world, and I have a deep appreciation for culture and for where people come from. And we don't have a lot of diversity on our dais. We don't have a lot of diversity here with our candidates. And the people in Hutto, we're a majority-minority city now, and we're not serving the minority at all. And those are the people that are moving to Hutto. I became an enemy on the dais the moment I wasn't voting the way I was being told to vote, the moment I started challenging the things that we were doing as a council and as a body. People in this very room have decided to attack me without ever having a discussion with me as a person, as a human being. And that's why I do public office hours twice a week, and I always make myself available for coffee or lunch because face-to-face conversations are so imperative. This forum and the forum we did previously with the realtors, my opponent and people that aren't even in my race decided to attack me instead of answering the questions, which is a Q&A session a forum is. So right now, I've been attacked on my faith and for being involved in the Catholic Church. I've been involved with all kinds of entities that, I'm sorry, that's what I do in my private life when I'm not a city council person. So right now, if you want to have crosstalk, Mr. Mayor, then I challenge you to a debate in 3 weeks where we can actually discuss issues, and it's not just you saying things as fact without having any kind of person to hold you accountable for what you're saying. You have made multiple allegations toward me, towards my job, towards my family, and towards what I do in my private life without being held accountable. And that isn't what's good for Hutto. So with that, I'm just going to say that Hutto has a lot of opportunity, and we have a lot of great things coming towards us.
All right, I'll give you a fact. On September 6, 2021, I got a meme of two guys on Friends clapping. I text back and I said, "What's that for?" It said, "Being a damn good mayor, I appreciate your enthusiasm to unify and encouraging conversation, no matter how difficult those conversations might be." That was sent by Michael Salvo, Mandy's husband. We were all good until, in my opinion and others, she might have crossed the line. She might have crossed the line when the city attorney said you need to pay back your salary for violating the state constitution. Ever since that time, Mandy's been against me, and that's fine. I will not change my ethical standards. You cannot come up here and try to do things for personal gain. You can't come up here and do things to try to help you advance a political career. That's just not Mandy, that's anybody. So, like Nicole, I can tolerate different ideas. What I cannot tolerate is when anybody, and this is not Mandy, this is anybody, whether it be the previous mayor, the previous city council members, if you come up on this dais and you go to represent somebody else other than the Hutto citizens and the taxpayers, you elect me, I'll be the first person to call them out. We will have the discussion on the dais in the public. No matter how difficult it is, we will. No matter how much fighting we try to do behind the scenes to keep the discussion in the back room, we will have that up here. And to prove the fact, I'll show everybody that wants to see afterwards my whole messaging with Michael Salvo. Because again, I was doing a great job until all of a sudden I questioned something. And it was an easy question, it could have got an easy answer. The mess that's caused in local government is when you ask those easy questions and people refuse to answer them, or they get defensive, or they do other things. So when you vote for me, you continue to see transparency. You want it, you get it. It may not always be good, it may not always be pretty, but that's the problem with transparency, is you see all the sausage getting made, the good and the bad. I've heard a lot about vision. There's a lot of talk about vision, but two of us have been up on a council the entire past year. Now all of a sudden, one of us has an issue with the direction we've been going, but I didn't see any agenda items come up. I didn't see any effort to bring anything up. So now all of a sudden there's a vision, there's a change, there's an idea. Where was that at the past 11 months? I will continue to put Hutto first. I'm gonna listen to everybody. I'm gonna represent everybody, even if I disagree, because I don't have an issue with people personally most of the time, unless they lie, cheat, or steal from the city. We've had some of that. I come from a dark area when I first got on council. I'm not gonna let it stand and happen again. So those of you, you can go look online. No one's challenging faith. People are only challenging the reason that people are doing certain things. You have to be open and honest with everything. You can't hide behind things. And so the direction of Hutto is either to move forward, in my mind, to continue being transparent, or go back the way we used to be.
Okay, I just about have to throw away my whole closing statement because of that slam that we got. We also had an experience with Michael where he was trying to recruit us into the Young Republicans and use us for his benefit. When he realized he was all good to us, you know, he'd go to lunch, go to coffee, all of this stuff, till he realized that James was not willing to change the bylaws of the Hutto Community Watch so that the Hutto Community Watch would be willing, and we could have, the C4s can be a PAC. I mean, we can oppose, or promote candidates, but when Michael found out that James was not willing to go along with that, not willing to use his organization to oppose or promote the candidates that Michael was bringing forward, instead of just working issues like James wanted to, he dropped us cold. Well, we're not friends anymore because we didn't fit his image. And I'm sorry, but I've tried to be open with everybody. I will speak with anybody that wants to speak with me. But when they don't return my phone calls, when they tell me to go to hell, that's kind of the drawing point for me. That's the line in the sand. And I'm sorry, but I had to do that. I've learned a lot here today. I've learned a lot good and bad here today. I can tell you here that I highly value the knowledge of Randall Clark concerning the EDC and P&Z. I'm very impressed by that. But I can tell you that I spend a lot of time in city council, in the council chambers. And I look sometimes up there at the dais, and I really do. I say, who are these people? You know, I don't really know much about their personal life. Well, I can tell you that I had a blessed childhood. I was one of 5 children, 2 older than me, 2 younger than me. I was a middle child. We were city kids. But my dad was a farmer before I was born. He lost an arm in a farming accident. I have a picture of my sister and I sitting on the end of hitching a ride on the end of Mama's cotton sack. And I don't remember it, but obviously, you know, and all my cousins are still in farming, so that really, I just really have a feel for Hutto. I had a railroad in my backyard growing up, and I married into a railroad family, several generations of railroad in his family. So I have an affinity for Hutto. I love Hutto, and it takes me home. For the May 2020 election, I endorsed Dan Thornton for place 2. Dan has provided continuity, knowledge, and wisdom for our city. I hope he stays. For this May 2022 election, Nicole will provide historical knowledge and discernment at place 6.
Time.
All right. Let me know when you're ready, sir. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Kind of got a little crazy here and off the rails. I'm running for place 3. Let me talk about, once again, to reiterate my qualifications. I've been serving on some board or commission in the city since March of 2018. That's 4 years. So from day one, I don't have to get up to speed. I know the challenges we have in the city and what we need to do. I work with anyone. I think I've demonstrated that on all the boards and commissions I have served on. So you elect me, day one, you have a council member that knows what's going on, is ready to work, put their hands up and get things done. My wife's a school teacher here, so I'm fully invested in the community. I've already lived here 16 years. I don't plan on going anywhere. My youngest child is in 2nd grade, so we're Hutto Hippos for life. But what I need to do is help us plant trees so that we can get that overall tax burden lowered so that when I'm ready to retire, I can retire in Hutto too. Because after I've already spent all my working life here, I want to retire here. I want my whole generational family to be in Hutto. I'm a 6th generation Texan. My great-grandfather actually was a conductor on the Union Pacific Railroad, so I have that familiarity with railroad. We have an agricultural farm that we still farm today out in West Texas and in Gainesville. We have in there, so I've been here since the 1850s, my family in Texas. I'm not going anywhere. I have no higher office aspirations. I'm an engineering manager for a technical company. So I bring that data-driven process to everything I do. I have a philosophy, follow the spec or change the spec. I think that's one of the problems we've had in Hutto. We didn't have very many specs, and the ones we did have, we didn't follow. For example, I found out every time on P&Z I would say, what's the TIA? What's the traffic impact fee? Then I found out that city staff, by direction of city manager and council, was waiving all fees. We went through a study. We came back with the water improvement fee, with the water impact fee study. We brought that proposal to council and the traffic impact fee, and even then it was still being waffling. And I said very plainly, look, you vote for this tonight, it's $1.5 million in your hand from the development that's coming the next week. Otherwise, you can kick it down the can and debate it for another 2 months. That money's gone. It's never gonna come back. They adopted it that night. It's that kind of mentality. At some point, you have to have the leadership to make the decisions of the vision to help our city grow. I will do that. I will work with anyone. I am respectful to everyone. I also give the analogy of, they have an elephant, but I like to use it as a hippo. There's a stinky side, there's very strong teeth on the other side, but it also kind of looks cute when it's walking along the side. So, but the thing is, we need to look on all sides. So you need to have people on council that don't just look at one end or another end, but also will be willing to talk on both sides to get to the right best decision. That should be in public, and then the very sensitive things that need to be handled can be done. Thank you for your time and your vote.